The American people, when they turn on the news, they want just the news. Spare me the talking points. I think people are sick of the freak parade on cable TV, night in and night out. People are consuming news these days everywhere, on every device. And we're going to be there. We're going to be fair. We're going to be fearless. We feel like we have a responsibility to you, the American people. News and opinions that are honest and real. Real America's voice. All right, live from Studio 6B on a Thursday night. Lots more to do. Remember, Michael J. Knowles from the Daily Wire joins us at 9:30. But right now, please welcome the former mayor of New York City and the host of the Common Sense podcast, Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for coming back on the show. Lots to talk about. Let's start with GDP numbers this morning. 33.1% increase in GDP. What should the voters take from this? The president said this was coming. Here it is. The underlying numbers are even better than the overall number. What should we be looking at?
What we should be looking at is that the president has now demonstrated for a second time that he probably has been the best steward of our economy of any modern American president. He, until the pandemic, he brought us to our highest level of prosperity, including for the poorest people. Remember, the job gains for blacks and for Hispanics were historic before the pandemic. Lowest unemployment, highest employment, best wages at the low levels, middle levels, upper levels for all groups. Then we were hit by the pandemic, and the Democrats, of course, the world was going to end. We were going to have a depression we might not come out of. I don't remember how we were going to have 25% unemployment, and we'd have a depression for about 2 years. Well, that's, of course, if Biden had been president, we would have a depression for 2 years. He even predicting it with his speech yesterday. We're going to have a terrible winter. The big dark winter is coming. Sounds like the Game of Thrones. Yeah. And you know what happened to the people in the Game of Thrones, right?
Yes.
So instead, what we have is 3 months in a row of the highest job gains in history. We've got people back to work at levels that were at least 5 times what anybody predicted. We have GDP growth that's historic by 3 times. Our gross domestic product has grown 3 times.
Yeah.
I mean, it's never happened before.
Yeah.
And he's got us about 3/4 to 80% of the way back. It would be crazy to replace him with a man who can't count.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy can't count.
And, you know,
30336333. I was a senator 186 years ago.
Yeah.
Call my number, 267-342-643-721.
Well, Mr. Mayor,
I'm running against Ralph. No, it isn't Ralph. George. I'm running against George III.
Yes. Well, the last time you were on, if you remember it, you told me Joe Biden was the dumbest man that you'd ever met in all of your years. But what we didn't know then.
I was told that by his law school classmate 40 years ago.
Yeah.
He said to me before I met him, he said, he's a nice guy. Boy, he's probably the dumbest guy you're ever going to meet. And he didn't fail. He didn't fail me. He did fail me on the second part, being a nice guy. This guy's a big crook. He's not a nice guy.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
And
now we know
he's a mean man. He's a mean, limited man. To do what he did to his son, no father should do that. No father should do that. I have no respect for this man, the way he treated his son.
Let's talk a little bit about it. You know, Tony Bobolinsky comes out, and, you know, for those of us who have never seen him before, see him for the first time, and you judge someone by their credibility and looking at him. And I will say this is the way I would put it, and I'm sure as a former prosecutor you would agree. He is a devastating prosecution witness, credible, honest. I mean, he is a devastating witness. Would you agree?
Sure. I mean, just the opposite of Joe Biden, who was caught plagiarizing in law school when he was 21 years old. That's quite a mark on your character. Then he repeated it when he was in the Senate and running for president, plagiarized again. We know he's lying about not knowing about his family's business because we have the text now to prove it. He's been lying for 7 years. And we know he's been getting money because his son tells us that on the hard drive. So What we got is a Navy officer who left the Navy under an honorable discharge up against a lying career politician who's been caught lying so many times. It's almost ridiculous. The man has no credibility and no character.
So the FBI has been sitting on this hard drive, and up until today, my questions for you were going to be, what are they doing over there? And just before you came on, I see this tweet from Charlie Kirk that says, breaking, DOJ officials confirm Hunter Biden and his business associates are currently under active criminal investigation by the FBI. The investigation has been ongoing since 2019 and may include his father, Joe Biden. Where is the media? That's from Charlie Kirk. Breaking, I guess, at 5:40 p.m. So what's your reaction to that?
My reaction is I gave them all the documentation in January of 2020. I gave it to the State Department in March of 2019. Enough documentation so you should be able to go in about 4 months from there to a grand jury to a 4 or 5 count racketeering case. The evidence against Joe Biden is stone cold. And I'm saying that as an extremely experienced prosecutor. Never seen a better bribery case than the one against Joe Biden. And it's in the multi-millions. It'll be the biggest bribery case involving a president or vice president in our history. And it'll show how corrupt the Obama administration was, because if they break that one open, there are about 2 or 3 more Obama people to go down. Obama ran the most corrupt administration in history, and this is what they've been hiding. This is why they have this conspiracy with the big tech and with the big media. I mean, the almost biggest story is the censorship they've been able to carry out. They've virtually written away our First Amendment rights. I mean, I have to get this story out on 20 or 30 local stations a day because NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, owned and operated affiliates of the Democratic Party, they haven't reported once on it. Zero.
It also
that's outrageous.
Yeah,
that's outrageous. That's such a violation of what it is to be America. I mean, I look at a guy like Dorsey, and I wonder where he grew up. Did he grow up in America? He's gonna ban the New York Post. Who do you think you are? As Senator Cruz said, who the hell do you think you are? God?
Yeah. Well, it also explains, Mr. Mayor, John Solomon, of course, from Just the News, who we work with a lot, who's been on this show, was on a couple nights ago. He broke the story a couple months ago that people like him, you, Sean Hannity, other media personalities were basically being spied on as well about this Joe Biden barisma. They were trying to get ahead of it. It makes a lot more sense now.
They actually monitored us illegally.
Yeah.
The State Department did. And I've never heard a word from the State Department explaining it to me, apologizing to me. Nor did any of the others, Don Jr. You pretty much, I think, Congressman Jim Jordan. It was basically a Biden-Hillary enemies list carried out by the Trump State Department.
Yeah,
you can't make it up.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things I want to ask you, and one of the things I hear from the audience a lot, and Ted Cruz mentioned this the other day. He said, the salacious stuff with Hunter Biden and what he's done, and if he has his day with the law, that day will come, but he's not sure it moves the needle with voters. Where do you stand on that thought process?
Well, I agree and I disagree with Ted. I agree with you. The salacious stuff doesn't move anything. The substantive stuff is dramatic, however. I'm sorry, I don't believe that American voters will vote if they have the facts for a vice president who sold his office through his family maybe 8 or 9 times. And from the time he became vice president until the time he left, made about $40 million selling it. I just don't think the American people will accept that. Nor do I think they will accept the kind of national security problem he posed and his son to the United States in their dealings with China. So all that salacious material you're talking about, the Chinese have all of it.
Sure.
I'm not the only one who has it.
Yeah, of course.
And the Chinese probably have 3 times what I have. And they were gathering it so they could jam it up Joe. And the last transaction, the one that Mr. Bobolinsky is talking about, unless you're totally unsophisticated, was an intelligence operation. It was being run by an intelligence officer of the Chinese Communist Party, Xi Jinping. That's the very rich man he's talking about on tape, Hunter is. It was also being executed by, self-described by Hunter, one of the chief spy masters in China, Mr. Ho. What are they doing? The Bidens, Joe and Hunter, being partners with 3 Chinese communists who are intelligence officers and spies. What are they doing? I mean, if they're not selling out America, what are they doing? And if they aren't selling out America, they sure making it look like they are by taking $10 million a year from them.
But I think what people...
We're going to elect a president. We're going to elect a president who was partners with a high-level Chinese communist intelligence officer, and the person his son describes as the biggest spy master in China. This is crazy.
But Mr. Mayor, let me ask you this: other than him lying about not knowing what other than his lying about not knowing what Hunter was doing, which, by the way, I think is enough. Are there laws that you believe have been broken by Hunter and by Joe, or just by Hunter that Joe knows about?
They broke the bribery law 8 or 10 times. In Ukraine, twice. In the Ukraine, there are numerous witnesses. This is what I turned over to the State Department and the Justice Department. There are numerous witnesses and tape recordings and audio recordings that will prove that Joe Biden was bribed by Mykola Zlochevsky, one of the crookedest men in Ukraine, that the job that Hunter had was merely a pass-through of money to Joe. And Hunter explains that on the hard drive that the American people are not allowed to listen to. Hunter explains that for 30 years, he's had to pay for all the expenses of the family and give half of what he makes to his father. Half. That's the money, the salary going to Hunter. Everybody wondered, what would they be paying Hunter for? He just got thrown out of the Navy for cocaine. Why would they be paying him? It's actually $2 million a year. They're not paying Hunter. You gotta be stupid to think they're paying Hunter. They're paying Joe. Hunter's the bag man. And then Joe steps in when the company is being seized. Mykola Zlochevsky's $5.4 billion company is being seized. And Joe stops the president of Ukraine from doing that. That's what that conversation is all about. That's what the hard drive can prove. That's what the witnesses can prove. And that's why the Democrat Party has been so corrupt and so obstructive in this. Because when that opens up, you're going to see that there were many other pay-for-play deals like that involving Obama administration officials, particularly in Ukraine, going back to about 2012.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I wish I had more time, but we got to go. And I always thank you for coming on the show. And thank you much for giving us a few moments.
You're welcome.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani here, live from Studio 6B. We got more to do. Michael Knowles coming up at 9:30. We're back right after this.